Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. Today we're at property address 18650 Allegheny Drive here in Oregon City. We're located inside the garage, right up against the front foundation wall. We have a 3-inch cast iron cleanout as our point of access. I'm going to insert the camera and check the overall condition and serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. Currently have water running. Here we go, and then we're going to zero the camera counter out right here where the cleanout ties onto the main line. Here at about 25 feet out, we kind of lose our view of it when we get into here too far. It looks like it's transitioning here to, as best I can tell, it's concrete. We'll have a better view when we pop out the other side of this, but we do have root intrusion coming through here. Yeah, it is switched to concrete, and it appears to be 4-inch in diameter. And here at about 61 feet out, appears we have reached the main lateral connection. I'm going to do locates to verify where this is at exactly, and then we'll let the line drain out for a few minutes before reeling back. That's when we'll get our best view of everything. All right, located the camera head successfully out the main on Allegheny Drive. The line's all drained out. We're going to go ahead and reel back. Okay, right here at about 32 feet out, we're looking up at the top of the pipe there. There is a clump and of stuff sticking out from that joint there. It's very possible that's a root intrusion. It's kind of a hard one to diagnose just because of the way it sits there. We just don't get a great view at it. But we already know we have roots in the line, so it's entirely possible that could be a root intrusion there. Looks like one. Now, while the camera was paused there, I pushed back out here at about 32 feet where I suspected we had a root intrusion, and I am going to recommend a spot repair here as well. This is definitely looks like root intrusion at this point. This is about less than a foot away from a rose bush, and this other root intrusion, unless there was an old tree that got cut down, it looks like the rose bushes have intruded here as well as the one at 25 feet. And this is the closest to the rose bush here. This is just barely underneath the driveway, right about the driveway skirt. Got that marked with a wide X at 5 feet 5 inches deep. And then the root intrusion at 25 feet, that one's at 4 foot 6 inches deep. I recommend repairs to correct both of those.
You know, we might just throw both these in here. Take out the
Sure.
stuff and all that.
We also have a very sunken portion of the driveway out there. It's just previous to this first root intrusion. I'll point this out here in a second. And right now, there's enough roots in the flow line that if you were to remove those, you might actually have no standing water here at all. What we're dealing with here is about, barely 2 feet of pipe, and right in here we're at 1/4 inch of standing water, which is not significant whatsoever. So this gives you the option, at least in my opinion, generally you don't get debris hanging up in a line until you have at least 5 feet of pipe with at least 1 inch of standing water, static, with no water running at all. That's where I start to see toilet paper collect. It's still pretty livable at that point. So in my opinion, if you only have about 1 foot of pipe here with 1/4 inch, and I would imagine it's going to be even less than this with the roots out of the flow line, I would look into the possibility of doing an epoxy liner on this. And if you go that route, at this point in this line's existence, I would consider lining the entire concrete section so you don't have to deal with any further repairs in the future. We do have an old aging concrete line here that will inevitably have to be repaired at some point. You can see in the flow line we've got aggregate rock showing through. It's not at a point yet where it just needs to be repaired, but it's one of those you want to be proactive about it. And if you're already down there doing a repair, it's the ideal and most cost-effective time, especially when it comes to doing liners, to get that stuff repaired. And if you see right here the separation in this joint between the cast iron and the concrete, there's about 1 inch of separation there. It looks like this might be allowing sewage possibly to escape the line here, and that could be what's eroding the bed out from underneath the driveway and has caused it to sink. It's hard to say exactly if that's what's going on, but when you've got issues like that in conjunction with a driveway that's sinking right next to it, it's fairly likely that that's what's going on there. I'm going to push out here and just try and clean this camera lens off real quick. Anyway, if you do the epoxy liners, I would recommend augering or jetting the line out to cut all those roots out of the way, and then run the epoxy liner down the pipe. This spot right here is just barely to the side of the driveway, and I mean like 2-3 inches offset to the driveway underneath the grass. A part of this line may actually reside underneath it. And then by the time you hit that second root intrusion, it is underneath the driveway. So then in that circumstance, when you have to start dealing with concrete repair, it generally is much cheaper to do an epoxy liner, especially if you're not planning on redoing the entire driveway. If you're planning on redoing the entire driveway, I would recommend just digging it up the old-fashioned way. But if you're just going to spot repair that sinking part of the driveway there, I would look into the epoxy liner. It generally will save you about 30% repair costs versus traditional trenching and having to repair any concrete cutting that's done. I also wanted to mention here too, if you do go the route of trenchless repair by doing a liner, for instance, and there's other trenchless repair systems, but when you have a line that the skeleton of it still functions properly, it's usually still cheaper to go that route versus doing a pipe burst or boring a new line in. But if you have to do any cutting of those roots there, be very careful. These old cast iron lines, right here is an example where you get scale buildup. If you kind of look on the side of the pipe, it might not be as obvious to someone who hasn't looked at these before, but where my camera is sitting right now is scale buildup. And if you run a jetter through these old lines like this, you can knock so much of that stuff loose that it can be very difficult to get it out of the way. And you can create more of a problem almost in what's there. So I would talk to if you go the route of doing a liner, I would talk to the repair guys, make sure that they see the video and how best to go about removing those. You may even be able to do a root killing foam and try and kill them off that way. I just don't know if that's going to do the job the way is necessary. So make sure you consult those guys before doing any drain cleaning to the line. Unless there's significant debris buildup, I generally do not recommend jetting cast iron, just because you can knock so much scale loose that it ends up making the line function 100 times worse than it did before. I turned water back on. I'm just having a hard time keeping the lens clean. That's what that is. Alright, we are just about back to the clean out here. Now, aside from the root intrusions at 25 feet and 32 feet, the cast iron pipe here appears to be in good condition. Sometimes you can have issues that hide underneath the scale buildup. I'm not seeing anything obvious though. And then apart from those root intrusion areas, the rest of the concrete I will call in fair condition. It is still functioning. It doesn't necessarily need to all be redone, but like I said, if you're already going to go through the effort of repairing that portion of it, I would seriously consider or looking at the cost difference between that and doing a full update to the concrete section of the pipe. At that point, then you don't really have to worry much about any further root intrusions happening to the sewer line or other issues like that. Doesn't guarantee anything, but a fully updated line is a much better prospect than a line of this age here. I'm just about to reel the camera out of the line. I just did my overview there on what I recommend. Get at the very least, I recommend a spot repair to correct the 2 root intrusions that we've found, and then I would look into the cost difference between spot repair or doing a full epoxy liner or a full update to the line. And there's other options other than epoxy. That's just, in my opinion, what may be the most cost-effective and easiest way to do this one. And make sure you get a rescope done after any repair work to make sure it was done correctly. But aside from the issues we've found there, all the rest of the pipe, the concrete's in fair condition, the cast iron is still in pretty darn good shape, but the line is functioning at this time and will function properly once those roots are dealt with there, especially the first one that's got roots right in the flow line.